College football needs coaches like Lane Kiffin and Deion Sanders. It just is a matter of fact. I don't know that that's an opinion. It's a matter of fact that guys like that help grow the game to those who might not be completely and wholly invested, like the diehard college football fan. And I think the game is better for it. I'm not one of these people who will sit here and tell you that the college is better. College football is better when this program, and this program is on top. Because I don't believe that. I think college football rocks at all times. So I don't think the sport is better. Well, college football is better when USC and Texas are great. No, it's not. College football is awesome whether Indiana or Washington State is on top. So this idea that, these blue blood people will only pay attention if college football is better when Miami is good. Well, I don't care about who is at the top. The sport is fun no matter what. But I do think the sport is more interesting when we have coaches like Lane Kiffin and Deion Sanders. And I liken them sort of to Steve Spurrier and Lane Kiffin more so than Deion Sanders, because Lane Kiffin isn't necessarily, I guess it's different styles, where Deion Sanders is a self-promoter and no one's going to believe in you more than you is a great way to go about life. Lane Kiffin is more of a bleep talker, a little bit dry sense of humor, a little bit more pot stirrer, in that Steve Spurrier vein of, I'll say whatever I think about our opponent or whatever, and all you get is more publicity for it. All you get is more eyeballs. Now you got to be able to back it up, which is easier said than done. But Ole Miss is going to play Alabama on Saturday. And for the first time since 2015, Alabama's not in the top 10 of the Associated Press football poll, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The poll, not Alabama. They got Alabama Saturday. They're making their preparations. And Lane Kiffin was asked about the Alabama defense, and he had this to say. He's talking about Kevin Steele, the Alabama defensive coordinator, and said, "We've been against Kevin a number of times to work with him at Alabama and against him at Auburn and LSU. There seems like there's been a change there. I don't know what happened after the Texas game, but our guys watching the TV copy and schematically in this last game certainly seems like T-Rob, Travaris Robinson, is now calling the defense. We played him before at South Carolina, so we're preparing accordingly for him calling the defense. He's done a good job, too, and they've got really good players." On the surface, that is not anything that raises any eyebrows until you consider that it's essentially Lane Kiffin saying Alabama changed. You can't say fired because Kevin's still there. Alabama essentially it's an argument that he is saying Alabama changed who they have calling their defense right now, and didn't tell anybody. Didn't say, hey, we're going to make a change here. We got a different guy calling the defense because we don't like the way things went against Texas. But that's a pretty big accusation to make, is that, hey, even though this guy is listed as the defensive coordinator, and there's an important distinction here, that there is often somebody who's got the title of offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. We just assume that means play caller. And sometimes, you could argue oftentimes, that's not the case, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where head coaches want to call their own plays. But somebody's got the title of offensive coordinator. That doesn't mean that they are calling the shots on offense. But this is Lane Kiffin saying that Alabama has a new defensive coordinator and didn't say anything about it, which I find fascinating. For one reason of why would you tip your hand if this is the case? If Alabama changed who was calling their play calls, why would you let your opponent know that you're on to them? I'm not certain the strategic advantage of what that does, other than embarrass your old opponent or embarrass your opponent and embarrass your old boss. And if that is the motive from Lane Kiffin, God love you, I'm here for it, because that is fun. That makes the game really fun. It is the Steve Spurrier school of public relations, which I think college football needs more of. To hell with the Fortune 500 public relations strategy. I want the Steve Spurrier strategy of saying he enjoyed playing Georgia early in the season because you could count on 2 or 3 of their important guys being suspended. That is hilarious. It's entertaining. And that's what this is all about. This sport is for entertainment. So by God, let's make it entertaining. The people who decry the WWE-ization of college football, oh my gosh, they're just trying to turn this into drama. Yeah, that's what sports is. It's soap operas with matching clothes. So I don't care about, you can say that you deeply care about the football and the strategy. You don't. You care about the soap opera. Because otherwise, you would watch Sam Houston State versus Air Force, and chances are you didn't watch Sam Houston State versus Air Force. You know why? Because you were too busy watching Colorado State. And you know why you were watching Colorado State? Because it's interesting, because there's drama, because the back and forth between Jay Norvell and Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders and everybody running their mouths made the soap opera really interesting. So when you get situations like this where the soap opera is fun, I'm here for it. And I think there needs to be more of it, because everybody at some point in their life has a feeling like Lane Kiffin or has a feeling like Steve Spurrier where they can just rattle all you can't spell citrus without UT is objectively hilarious. It makes the game more fun. And the game is already fun. So I am here for the guys like Lane Kiffin and Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders was on 60 Minutes on Sunday night. I guess today is Monday. So yeah, so last night Deion Sanders was on 60 Minutes, the season premiere. One of the biggest news shows in America in the history of television. In their season debut, thought that Deion Sanders was a big enough topic and would draw enough eyeballs to feature him in the debut episode, which shows you the power of the Deion Sanders brand. He had a similar type discussion of what Lane Kiffin had to say. He was asked, who's the best coach in college football is going to think you're the best, right? So it makes sense. People don't like the arrogance, I think people don't like the arrogance, the bravado that comes with Deion Sanders, but so far nobody has humbled him either. Whether that happens on Saturday against Oregon or not, I don't know. I can't see the future. Travis Hunter, Deion Sanders said today he's not going to play for 3 weeks, which is a tough time for him to be out because there are going to be a lot of eyeballs on Oregon, Colorado, and they play USC next week. It's a tough time for Travis Hunter to be out. But he hasn't been humbled. You can be cocky and arrogant and be filled with hubris or whatever the adjectives you want to use. As long as you can back it up. If you're going to be king of the mountain, you got to be the 800-pound gorilla. Nobody can say anything about it until they beat you. So I appreciate guys being real and honest, like Lane Kiffin, and saying, I think Alabama fired the defensive coordinator. And Deion Sanders, saying that he's the best coach in college football. Deion Sanders also, when he was on 60 Minutes, got super honest about why he is campaigning for Travis Hunter and his son Shedeur Sanders to be Heisman Trophy candidates. People aren't going to like the last part of that answer, but it's the truth. And it's something that we haven't confronted as college football fans, is that the overwhelming majority of recruits, whether they are 5 stars or 1 stars you will never hear of, are not choosing universities. They're choosing coaches. They're choosing programs. But Deion Sanders is right. Players are choosing Deion Sanders more than they're choosing the University of Colorado. And Deion Sanders is right. It's his job to advocate for his players to win the Heisman Trophy. But it shows the power of Deion Sanders' brand, and detractors aren't going to want to see that brand grow in stature and power. Now, I mentioned yesterday, I think that the college football world is drinking the Deion Sanders Kool-Aid, so he's already getting the benefit of the doubt that I don't know that he has earned. But I can't sit here and pretend as if Deion Sanders hasn't been good for college football, especially when he's going to be on the debut season debut of 60 Minutes. Deion Sanders and Lane Kiffin bring more eyeballs to college football, and the sport is better for it. This is the Daily Huddle. I'm Garrett Searight. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you get the opportunity, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube. Give the video a thumbs up. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. If you're listening on a podcast, drop a 5-star review. That really helps get us in front of more college football fans, and that's always a really good thing. I want to talk about rankings because people, especially early in the season, are overly preoccupied by the top 25, whether it's the coaches poll or the Associated Press poll. I live here in Ohio. People are angry the Buckeyes are no longer in the top 5, that they started the season that way and they have dropped. And I think there's a difference between dropping and being passed. Florida State and Texas have passed Ohio State as much as Ohio State has dropped, because I think it's the same thing for Michigan. Michigan beat 3 really bad non-conference opponents. Yeah, it's fair. I was going to backtrack that. It's really not. They beat 3 not good non-conference opponents, and they averaged 32 points a game while Jim Harbaugh was on the sidelines. You know where they started the season ranked? 2nd. You know where they're ranked right now? 2nd. So I know that people are preoccupied with the top 25 and their ranking, and I'm going to be preoccupied with it for just a moment. If you look at the top 25, I'll run them down for the podcast listeners. 1 through 5, Georgia, Michigan, Texas, Florida State, USC. 6 through 10, Ohio State, Penn State, Washington, Notre Dame, Oregon. 11 through 15 is Utah, LSU, Alabama, Oregon State, Ole Miss. 16 through 20, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Duke, Colorado, Miami. 21 through 25 is Washington State, UCLA, Tennessee, Iowa, Florida. Do you know what all 25 of those schools have in common? They are in Power 5 conferences. Those receiving votes: Clemson, Missouri, Kansas State, TCU, Fresno State. You have to get to ranking slot number 30 before you get a group of 5 school. Now, I don't know what a group of 5 school has to do to crack the top 25, because the opportunities, like a few years ago when Cincinnati made the college football playoff, they got that opportunity largely because they were really successful the year before, and they had 2 games against Power 5 conference teams on their schedule early in the season, and they happened to beat both Notre Dame and Indiana. The group of 5 schools that have the opportunity to play 2 Power 5 schools in a non-conference season generally are doing so they can have a baseball team, not so they can make the college football playoff or crack the top 25. The G5 schools who schedule 2 Power 5 non-conference games don't do so with the intention of winning those games and using it to their advantage. They do so because they need straight cash, homie. So I don't know at this point what a group of 5 school needs to do to be ranked, because Fresno State is 3-0. Is Fresno State one of the top 25 teams in the country? Maybe not. I don't think so. Is Tulane one of the top 25 teams in the country? I wouldn't argue that strenuously. They have a loss at home to Ole Miss, who is now 3-0 and the number 15 team in the country. So, if that is your loss, and I think Tulane is trending towards being the group of 5 representative in a New Year's Six bowl game again this season. If that's the blemish on your resume at this point of the season, how rough of a blemish is that? And why is that held against you while Alabama is the second highest rated team with a loss? Because you know what? Alabama lost to Texas at home. And they looked horrible doing it. Alabama beat South Florida on the road, which how the hell that happened, I'll never know. The game being at South Florida, not the win. I can figure out how they won. But they beat South Florida on the road, and they looked terrible doing it. Tennessee lost to Florida on Saturday night, and they looked terrible doing it. Florida lost to Utah earlier this year, and they looked terrible doing it. The only schools in the top 25 that have a 1 in their loss column, and there are 4 of them, are in the SEC. And I've talked about getting the benefit of the doubt a lot on this podcast. And some of the SEC schools have earned the benefit of the doubt. But when you watch Alabama, do your eyes tell you that there are not 13 better teams in America than them? Because I am here to tell you, if they don't figure something out quickly, and by quickly, I mean by Saturday, they're looking at another ass kicking. And I don't think that's where they want to be. But do Florida and Tennessee deserve the benefit of the doubt more than Tulane does? I guess so. But just because they have a conference logo on their chest, to me, doesn't mean that they should be just inherently ranked higher than somebody else just because they're in the SEC. Tennessee didn't look great on Saturday. Tulane didn't look great on against Ole Miss. All 3 of them, 2-1. Just one. Tulane whipped the tail of South Alabama, who whipped the tail of Oklahoma State. I don't know what a group of 5 school has to do to be ranked other than wait till later in the season so all these other schools can cannibalize themselves. I just think Tulane and Fresno State and Air Force deserve a little bit more love and credit than what they've gotten so far this college football season. And I don't know how to rectify it and how to change it. Honestly, I think there should be a top 25, and then there should be a top 15 for a group of 5. Because those schools deserve credit. They deserve notoriety and publicity and to be talked about. They're never going to get that opportunity when you run down the top 25 list that goes from Penn State, Washington, Notre Dame, Oregon, Utah, LSU, Alabama. That's a tough stretch. That's a tough nut to crack for Fresno State. and Tulane and Air Force and Memphis. But I don't know how they get there, especially early in the season without having a lot of success the year before. And I don't think that's how the poll's supposed to work. I think I'm supposed to, after week 4, or week 3, I'm supposed to judge the teams as they are this year, not what they've done in the past. But we all know that that's not the case. That'll do it for today's edition of the Daily Huddle. Thanks for making us a part of your day. We certainly appreciate it. Again, hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up so you're making sure you're getting to see all of our great college football content here on Saturday Glory. If you are listening on the podcast, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. We'll catch you tomorrow. Big slate of college football on Saturday. We're going to chat about it all week here on the Daily Huddle on Saturday Glory.